There's nothing else left to do. I'm alone. Now what? The tree shines bright over my throne tonight. I am the Elden Lord. I've conquered the lands between, and gods, I have grown bored. There's no one left to challenge unless I venture down below. I'll strike out one last time, defeat one last foe. I grasp my medal and take flight. I arrive to a land that's plagued by plight. This throne below is mine by right. Let's fight! Killing Mohg, killing Mohg. This bloody boy's gotta die. Killing Mohg, killing Mohg. I think I'm gonna cry. I don't care if the song is cringe. Let the run roll on. The blood never bothered me anyway. Ah. Elden Ring's first and probably only DLC is right around the corner, and I know that there's going to be a big job ahead of me. I've opened Pandora's box by subjecting myself to all my various challenge runs, and I know that there will be some expectation of me to tackle Shadow of the Erdtree with some challenges of my own. It's been quite some time since my last Elden Ring video, and a lot has happened. The game has been beaten in increasingly ludicrous ways since my Briar Armor run, including a Bare Fist only run, Scumnut's Reprisal and possibly mechanically superior version of my Briar run, and some of the most ridiculous mods that are created just to make this game even more difficult than it already is. So with all of these other talented creators with more time and patience than I could ever muster, even after having beaten the game with Briar Armor, it's been hard to find my place in this community. But with the DLC right around the corner threatening to reignite my passion for this incredible game, and the knowledge that people may expect the Elden Roll to return to his throne and tumble his way to victory once again, I thought that I'd take this time to get ready. It's expected that the entry point to Elden Ring's DLC will be at Miquella's Cocoon deep underground, far across Shifra River in Mohgwyn Palace. There's a problem though, and just like this video's cold open alluded to, Mohg has to die first. I'm thinking I'll bring back most of my challenge runs for a victory lap to the DLC once I've had the opportunity to play it casually for myself, and for most of those challenges, it's not really a big deal for me to defeat Mohg, and, well, I already did kind of beat him in the runs that matter. Except for, of course, the most difficult and time-consuming run that I've done to date, the Briar Armor roll-only run. Look, I know that most people probably wouldn't care if I pulled a weapon out and put Mohg in his place really quickly just to give my character access to the DLC area, but that's not the kind of challenge runner I am. And as far as I'm concerned, the challenge run encompasses the entirety of the game's obstacles and must be abided by at all times. That means only one thing. I have to defeat Mohg with my tried and true set of Briar Armor. What have I done to myself? I want to mention again that it's been a hot minute since my last challenge run. In fact, it's been many hot minutes since I've played Elden Ring at all. In fact, judging by the release date on my last challenge run that absolutely bombed in the algorithm, it's been exactly a year since I last touched this game at all. And that run wasn't even done using a normal controller. All that's to say, I'm rusty. Extremely rusty, in fact. Luckily for me, Mohg isn't exactly our first target. We've got some minor preparation to do first, and that minor preparation will be the perfect opportunity for us to get back into the groove. If you've seen and remember the original Briar Armor video, when I needed to grind a little bit, I made use of some pretty useful tricks in Mohgwyn Palace to collect a ludicrous amount of runes, which I was able to get to in the first place by allowing Mr. No Maidens himself to add my fingernail to his creepy cuticle collection. That means I already have a first-class ticket to the palace, so getting there won't be an issue as it's already taken care of. Apparently, I had also already unlocked the Grace near Mohg's arena when I originally did this run, so that's about as easy as that's ever gonna get.
But those of you who know Elden Ring pretty well are aware of the fact that there's a special item that's going to be important in surviving this boss fight past the first phase, the Purifying Crystal Tear. This item is mixed into the Flask of Wondrous Physic to negate most of the damage taken from Mohg's curse as he shifts into Phase 2, and is collected from an invading NPC at a dilapidated church in the middle of Altus Plateau. Because of all the grinding I had done on this character to get it ready for the pain and suffering of every single boss in the second half of the game, I knew that this wasn't going to be too much of a challenge. I'm straight up over-leveled for this area of the game, and that means that my defenses against this invading NPC are pretty insane. And I'm glad for that, because this NPC is super frustrating to fight. NPC invaders are always pretty annoying to fight. They're dodgy, they can heal, and they can sometimes bring spells and weapon abilities that are pretty tough to deal with depending on your capabilities. And boy, does this one have some annoying spells. Specifically, 2 different dragon incantations that I found extremely difficult to reliably dodge with how well they track my movement, and how much I'm completely unable to stagger them out of the spellcasting animation because of my tickle tactics. Like I said though, I am very overleveled for this area and for this fight, and my defenses are through the roof as a result. And, more importantly, the Briar armor happens to have some incredibly high resistance to the hemorrhage status effect, which is great not only for this fight with the NPC bleed-inflicting weapon attacks, but against Mohg and his annoying floor-wetting habits. Anyway, there's not really a whole lot to say about this NPC because, well, it's an NPC fight. It definitely helped me reacclimate myself to the game, and even though I got absolutely dumpstered on as this fight began and as I fumbled around with my controller trying to remember exactly how to play, I managed to survive long enough to get accustomed to the game's flow once again. Just like riding a bike. This NPC fight was done on the first attempt and took just over 11 minutes. Not too bad, but this was just the warm-up. And with the prerequisites taken care of, it's time to mix my physic and move on to the main event of the evening.
Welcome, honored the guest, to the birthplace of our dynasty.
The first and perhaps most exciting thing I have to find out about these bosses when I face them for the first time is just how much damage I'll be doing, and that's not a good sign. Something that I faced as I got deeper into this challenge run was the ever-increasing armor values of bosses as I approached the endgame. Boss health inflates, and so do their defense values. For a weapon that doesn't scale, can't be imbued, and can't be upgraded, this is obviously devastating. Mohg is no exception. Although he is optional, he's one of the final bosses of the game, and his considerable stats reflect that. Of course, I knew all this going in, so I made the conscious decision to not look at the stats beforehand. In the last video, I asked you to play a guessing game by commenting your initial guess for how long you think a boss would take, and hey, why not do it again? In the comment box, put your guess for how long you think it took me to beat Mohg, and then after the video, finish the comment to tell everyone how close you were. This isn't for a contest or anything, it's just for fun, so please don't cheat. Anyway, Mohg is one of the last bosses in the game, and of course that means his stats are pretty insane as well. This man's health pool is one of the largest in the game at around 18,400, and takes a pathetic 14 damage per roll. This is just phase 1 though, and stats tend to change on phase 2s, but we're gonna focus on this phase for now. Mohg is my favorite fight in this game, at least until the DLC comes out and threatens to challenge that. He's one of the most physically imposing humanoids in Elden Ring, and really feels like the lord of his domain. He hits like an absolute dump truck, but that power is matched by exceedingly large wind-up times and slow, wide-arcing swings that take a while to finish. This means that if I'm aggressive, I can sneak in quite a lot of rolls during one of his very lengthy combos. Fortunately for me, even if I am hit, those hits don't take off nearly as much health as I initially expected. This is likely because of how much I overleveled to prepare for endgame, but I'm not complaining. It's also probably because of the very defensive talisman setup that I brought into this fight. First is the Crimson Seed for extra healing, followed by the Dragon Crest Great Shield and +1 Flame Drake for extra physical and fire defense respectively, rounded out by Old Faithful, the Blessed Dew Talisman for a slight heal over time. I decided that the extra fire defense was more desirable over an extra point of damage or two while being at full health, which turned out to be the correct move because I honestly didn't spend very much time of this fight topped off. Even better, the slower pace of this fight means that there's usually enough time between taking hits for my natural health regeneration from my shield and talisman to take over, and the shape of the arena coupled with Mohg's bad knees that prevent him from being able to run means that I can easily build up enough distance to cast Bestial Vitality, my heal over time spell, if things ever started to look a bit dicey. Even though I would like to be as aggressive as possible to save some time, I also need to be patient enough to not die. I want to stretch my flasks and FP for as long as I possibly can. Mohg's main combos are slow enough that as long as I don't do anything stupid, I should never get hit. Unfortunately, avoiding being stupid for dozens of minutes at a time through an extremely repetitive task proves too hard sometimes, and I get hit anyway. As long as I don't get hit too often though, it's still not a big deal, but these things have a way of adding up. And by too often, I mean more than once every 2 minutes or so is too much for my regeneration of 5 health a second to keep up with my total health pull of 2,000. It's not like I'm immediately dead after getting pummeled by a bad string, but I can only make as many mistakes as my flasks can support. The main combos may be pretty slow, but there's still a few things that I really need to keep my eyes open for since they tend to catch me off guard more than the other moves. First, his blood sprays are annoying, but easy to avoid. If they hit directly, they'll take a large chunk of health off, but more often than not, they just leave behind puddles of bloody fire that I need to work around, constraining the areas where I can be aggressive. The blood rain is even more annoying because we could be having a nice dance before he decides that he's done. Once he casts this, it basically turns off my ability to attack him until he moves away from the casting spot. It's simply a frustrating time waster. Next, Mohg has 2 Fire Blast spells. The first one is pretty weak, but it's quick. What's scary about it though is that he can use this one pretty suddenly as a surprise mix-up to finish off his normal combos. It doesn't hit especially hard, but it's liable to catch me off guard every now and again to throw off my groove. The other version of this Fire Blast is much slower and hits harder, and is the start of a short, very easy to dodge combo. This is only a small opening, but with a health pull like Mohg's, I'll take whatever I can get. And finally, this Ground Stab. This is one of his weirder moves. It's quick and hits pretty hard, and can be used as a mix-up to punish me for being too aggressive. What makes it weird though is that it has a hitbox both as he stabs and as he pulls out. That means that I can punish this, but only from behind. Luckily, I do plenty of damage on pullout too. Wait, hold up. And if the world was just, that would be it. But we're adults who know better. You're gonna have to wait just a bit longer to glimpse the coming dystopia because that ground stab that I mentioned smears 12 minutes of progress into the ground. Despite that death, it's hard to feel too upset. That was just the first attempt, and honestly, I didn't even expect to get this far into the fight on the first try after being away for so long. And losing 12 minutes in the context of this run is really not a big deal. But you know what they say, playing Elden Ring is just like riding a bike.
Who says that?
What?
Nobody says that.
But I thought everybody said that.
No, you said that like 5 minutes ago. Just you.
Oh, it's a good saying though, right?
Not really.
I guess we can cut it out then.
It's probably for the best.
Between the unexpected progress and my desire to not spend the rest of my life on this challenge, I start to get a little ahead of myself. Surely this next run will take it, right? I've said it before and I'll say it again, but for these long, drawn-out fights, patience is key. There's no timer to go up against, so I can really take my time and make sure I'm dodging Mohg's attacks at the right time. That said, I know I have a long fight ahead of me, so it's a bit of a personal challenge to keep my aggression from going too hard. Every once in a while I was able to get a dream scenario to happen though. Much like how you can get Godfrey stuck in a bit of a spinny strafey loop, you can kind of do the same thing with Mohg. He gets super confused if I keep kissing his left hand, and his AI just doesn't know how to react. At least until I mess it up. The timing and positioning seem to be somewhat precise, but as nice as it is to get a string of 300 damage for absolutely zero risk, I don't think it's the most exciting thing to watch. It definitely wasn't the most exciting thing to play, and honestly made me kind of dizzy anyway. Regardless, the fight must go on, and on, and on, and on, and oops, bathroom break, and on, until finally, mercifully, we begin to transition into Phase 2. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, that's not good. Look, it's not like I didn't know that Mohg heals a lot when phase changing, but I wasn't exactly sure by how much. With any normal run, you could just pummel Mohg for free while he does his little song and dance, and it's great. But when you're only doing 5 damage per attack with the heightened defenses he gets through this phase transition, it becomes quite a bit harder to capitalize. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Phase 2. Mohg's Phase 2 is no joke, and the healing he receives on the transition is absolutely devastating. It's hard to tell exactly what Mohg's healing amount and health values are after his transition, but using the power of algebra and Photoshop, I can estimate that Mohg transitions at exactly 50% health and jumps back up to 77.85%. That's nearly a 30% heal that's not really accounted for by his normal, massive health pool. Even worse is the realization that Mohg's defenses are up from Phase 1, causing me to do only 11 damage per roll as opposed to the 14 I was doing before. It doesn't sound like a huge increase, but that's a roughly 20% reduction in damage, and a 20% increase in how many rolls I would have otherwise needed to finish this bloody daddy off once and for all. It's not a positive revelation, but knowledge is power, and I'm happy to make progress. Yay. So, Phase 2. It took 34.5 minutes, minus the bathroom break, to get here, and roughly 25 minutes of that progress was destroyed as far as this health bar is concerned. So, we're in it for the long haul. Phase 2 isn't just more difficult as far as this health bar is concerned. Mohg becomes much more offensive in more ways than one. First off, he wets the floor. Constantly. Lil bro must be pissing straight alcohol because it's highly flammable, but at least it evaporates pretty quickly. That means I have to continue this fight while being constantly cognizant of the puddles of death littering the floor. My only solace lies in the fact that between my heightened fire resistance from my talisman and the high bleed resistance from this armor, I'm never at any real risk of having a bleed proc hit me. That doesn't mean this phase is easy though, because many of Mohg's other attacks increase in danger and complexity, even if only because of those puddles. But beyond the spray, his ground stab is so much more dangerous than it was before, causing a large explosion that can be tricky to dodge if you don't know the timing. His basic combos get a little spicier, sometimes continuing after a quick fire blast, or even mixing in this sexy little reverse swing into his combo. His forward stab also gets some extra sauce. He'll dart forward, often shooting himself right past me, but if he doesn't go past me, I still have to watch out for more blood that he spews in front of him, and, very rarely, for a little flourishing twist of bloody spray. He has a new jump attack that's probably the best thing ever since it's the easiest thing in the world to dodge and gives me a huge window of opportunity to punish. But he also gets this attack that can have a bunch of different results depending on how I choose to dodge it. The first way is to dodge forward through the attack, ending up further away from Mohg after he sweeps through your zone. He'll respond in one of two ways. The first way is lame and stupid and we hate it, because he'll reach up into his bloody void and throw some entrails at you. This one sucks because it keeps us apart for much longer than I usually want because I'm a hopeless romantic. The second way is usually preferred because he'll jump back up into the sky for a swooping stab that has the potential to absolutely devastate my health pool, but it does bring us together so I can give him a long, bristly 11 damage at a time hug. I'd say that each Mohg response to dodging away from his "That's fine now" swipe is equally as likely as the other, so the longer that I engaged in this fight and the more impatient that I got, the more I decided to dodge towards the area that Mohg is going to land in. Most of the time, Mohg's response will be to throw out a long string of melee attacks, forcing me into yet another dance where he's the leader. Each dodge is an opportunity for damage though, so whatever keeps me in the fray when I'm feeling reasonably healthy is much preferred. Despite the preference for increased aggression, I can't understate how much the bloody spray from every single one of Mohg's swings changes how I move around. Even though the damage is minimal and my resistances are pretty high, I don't want to be taking unnecessary risks by stepping in Mohg's sick when I don't need to. This means that there's quite a bit of danger in the approach of dodging towards Mohg's swoop to stay aggressive, because his "They fly now?" attack begins with an initial blood spray that already complicates the engagement, and every attack just threatens to box me in even more than the previous. To pile on to all of this extra nonsense that Mohg is now capable of, he's also far more aggressive than he was in Phase 1. He chooses to attack more often, he approaches more quickly, and his combos are longer. It can feel like you're firing on all cylinders for minutes at a time. There is one great opportunity that he can give me for a rest though, which comes from his "they fly now" attack. If I have enough distance from Mohg after he flies backwards and into the air, he'll just give up. Instead of swooping back down at me, he'll impotently land further away from me than when he started, and slowly start trundling his way back towards me. This is the perfect opportunity to either safely cast Bestial Vitality or just take a break. Because let's face it, this fight is taking quite a while, and getting an opportunity to take a moment to not have to think and just let my mind calm down from the action is pretty helpful. Like, have you ever had these moments where your brain just stops doing the right thing? You're doing a job or a task and have been for the past few minutes, successfully mind you, and you've fallen into a groove that might even be described as an out-of-body experience where your eyes are directly connected to the rest of your body and driving the decisions while your mind is otherwise engaged on something else. Maybe you're daydreaming about what you're going to have for lunch after this fight, or maybe it's about the plans you have for the evening with your friends, or maybe you're fantasizing about Sarah Kerrigan sitting on your face. My point is, the task is so repetitive and solved at this point that your active brain isn't even a part of the picture anymore. Your body almost acts on its own, trained by dozens of hours of input and decision making, and the muscle memory just takes over based on the input that your eyeballs are receiving. This muscle memory zone is the ideal place to be for any difficult challenge or competitive experience. You don't want your mind focusing on the individual task, but you do want it focused on the big picture. You want to focus on the macro strategies that will either get you ahead or keep you alive, and the brain power is focused on changing strategies based on bigger picture inputs that you're receiving, while the rest of your body does what it's been trained to do. For most of the boss fights in this Briar Armor Challenge run, this is how I've experienced most of these longer fights. They're so excessively long and repetitive that, at some point, I just kinda zone out and let my brain autopilot my body while I think about anything else. But I think that one part of the muscle memory training that many competitors and professionals rarely talk about is that awkward period between knowledge and mastery, where sometimes the muscle memory takes over, but sometimes your brain gets in the way of what you've just learned and messes everything up. On this second attempt, that's exactly what happened. I could feel the beat of the music and my body kind of knew what to do, but for some reason or another, my brain just stopped responding to the stimulus it was given in this fight to make the correct decisions. I don't know if it was me trying to impose my will on the fight, or if my brain was just especially tired and decided to shut down unexpectedly like Windows does when it decides you haven't updated in too long, but I ended up in a situation where I found myself using 4 flasks in the span of 5 minutes because I was taking way too many hits. Remember when I said that 1 hit every 2 minutes is probably the limit of what I can handle? Yeah, 4 and 5 minutes is probably a little too much. So after just under an hour of combat, I used my last flask while Mohg is still comfortably over 50% of his maximum health. You don't need me to tell you how this attempt ends, but I'll show you anyway. This is what happened after an hour, excluding the bathroom break, of fighting.
Is mine and mine alone.
Yeah, that's me. 1 hour down the drain. If I'm being honest though, I'm still not shocked that my second attempt ended in failure. I always knew that Mohg's second phase was going to pose a threat to my ultimate goal, even if the amount of healing was a little bit on the surprising side. What I couldn't shake, however, was the heavy realization that I've spent over an hour on this fight, and yet this was only the second attempt. Okay then, Nothing else I can do other than to try again, right? I'ma be real with you. It was 2 whole weeks before I actually tried this again. My relationship with content creation lately has been pretty strained. Between real life being more important and the view count of my videos making it so that I feel lucky to break 10,000 views every once in a while, my motivation has been pretty shot lately. Few things stress me out more than the prospect of sinking another hour into an attempt at this boss only to die, and not knowing if this video is even going to succeed at the end of it all. Is my challenge run career over after the brief, bright burn that it achieved in 2022? Or is there more left in the tank for a final puff before the next phase of Elden Ring's life? Well, I guess that's what we're all here to find out, because after 2 weeks I enter Mohg's arena again, knowing that I've probably screwed myself over by getting in my own head about all of this and refusing to even make the attempt again until now. Even though the last attempt ended poorly, it really wasn't that bad of an attempt. But here I am, rusty again because of my own insecurities. But you know what I say, playing Elden Ring is just like riding a bike. It turns out that muscle memory is pretty hard to shake, and after only 27 minutes this time compared to the 34.5 that it took before, we enter Phase 2. Last time, I entered this phase having used 5 Crimson Flasks, and with 4 casts of Bestial Vitality left before I need to use the Gatorade. This time, all flasks are still available, and I have 5 casts remaining. By every possible metric, this third attempt is going incredibly well. It's another 5 minutes before I use my first flask, and 16 minutes into this phase, I finally drink my one and only Gatorade, and am sitting at 8 Crimson Flasks left, with Mohg sitting at roughly 60% of his total health pool. At this point, I'm feeling pretty anxious. My resources look alright, but based on what I entered this phase with, I'm burning out quite a bit faster than I should. By this point, if I were to distribute the flasks evenly for Mohg's maximum health upon entering this phase, he should be at around 50% total health left for the amount of flasks that I have used. When I play these difficult games with resource management aspects like Elden Ring, I'm constantly doing these rough little calculations in my head about how much of a health bar do I need to chew through per use of my limited healing resources. I'm not a super genius or anything, so my math isn't exact, but there's a sort of intuitive feeling that comes along with enough experience that tells you that you're over budget, and that feeling was firing on all cylinders at this point. Despite that, over the next 6 minutes or so, I found myself using 2 more flasks. And then, an hour into this third attempt, with Mohg sitting at 40% of his maximum health, I find myself with only 3 Crimson Flasks remaining and 5 more casts of Bestial Vitality. I'm not gonna lie, this feels pretty dire. At this point, I know I'm drastically over budget, and my chances don't look great. So I refocus my mind. My adrenaline and anxiety are going absolutely crazy at this point, and I know that I've got to calm myself down, stop letting my brain get in the way, and just execute. 18 minutes later, after a handful of casts of Bestial Vitality, I use another flask. 2 Crimson Flasks and 2 casts of Bestial Vitality remain. That was a very long period of efficiency, but I'm still technically over budget at this point, so it's not like I'm out of the woods yet. Still, Mohg is sitting at about 23% or so, and I'm feeling hopeful again. Scared, but hopeful. After 2 more minutes, my last cast of Bestial Vitality is used, and then, at an hour and 27 minutes in, this happens. That's bad. Shit. Oh, that was so close. Mohg is sitting at 15% health. I have 1 flask left, 0 casts of Bestial Vitality, and a dream. It's so close that I can taste it. It's just a matter of, not making any more mistakes. Easy, right? So, this whole time, I've been in a Discord call with my friend D-Pad Gamer, just talking about random stuff. Mostly, the conversation was me focusing on the fight and occasionally engaging in conversation, but at this point, I think the distraction was necessary. It's never easier to choke than when you overthink your own reflexes, especially when you've achieved some level of mastery. I know this, I've been there many times. That's what this challenge has taught me more than anything. If I let the Zen guide me and disengage my mind from the task in front of me, things tend to go pretty well. I don't know if that's a good lesson or not, but it's what happened. So, over this last 15%, I let myself focus more on the conversation with D-Pad Gamer than on the fight itself.
On my desktop, because I couldn't find it, because I had to look through the letters and remember, oh, it's not T for the, it's L for legend. That was longer than it took for it to be ready. It was basically instantaneous.
I was looking through the code for the launcher that comes with Majora's Mask, and it does kind of look like it can support more than just Majora's Mask. Do you have like a newsfeed thing on your phone? Where it just kind of shows you news that your phone thinks you'll be interested in?
Are you asking like how I found it, or in general?
In general, because I'm segueing to something that's somewhat related.
Dude, it's so chill. You're doing so great.
Why say words?
Like they even said like, oh well, you know, you could actually just kill that robot using this thing, but like your Momo Chow method was way cooler.
So it's like a did you know as opposed to a actually.
Yeah, it's like GameStop going back to $40 an hour, or 40.
That sounds pretty good actually.
Sorry, no.
I'd work at GameStop for $40 an hour.
I mean, me too. GameStop stock is back up for some reason.
Yeah, I've heard. I'm not about to get caught up in that meme.
Oh yeah, no, me either.
Let's
Hey!
go!
Yay!
That's right, over budget and stressed out of my mind over the prospect of all this sunk cost, Mohg finally goes down while just talking about random garbage. Even after the 2-week hiatus, on the first attempt of the day and the third attempt overall, it's finally done. Mohg's total health after healing was 23,510. This is more than the Elden Beast, with even more armor than the Elden Beast, but it's at least less than the Elden Beast and Radagon combined. It's also less than the Fire Giant, but the total amount of rolls that it took to kill Mohg is the same as the year that Hawaii joined the United States, 1959. That's a lot of rolls, my poor controller. And with the weird damage fluctuation of the Fire Giant, I think the total amount of rolls to kill the Giant is around the same that it took to kill Mohg, which is pretty crazy to think about. That said, the time to beat Mohg blows the Fire Giant away. I hope you made your guesses because here's the answer. 1 hour, 42 minutes, and 20 seconds. No bathroom break. That's less than 10 minutes away from the time that it took to beat both Radagon and the Elden Beast together. And this is the boss that guards the entry into the DLC? I don't know if I'm ready. Look, I totally plan to do some challenge runs for Shadow of the Erdtree, but man, I don't know, guys. I hope you'll forgive me if the Elden Roll DLC video never happens from me. I know this video is releasing well after other creators have had their 3-hour previews come out, but I'm keeping myself blind to the DLC so I can experience it fresh without any preconceptions of what to expect. So I don't know what's waiting for me on the other side of this bloody bauble I just fought my way to. And I don't know if there's going to be anything on the other side that could possibly increase the amount of damage that this armor does. This was nearly 2 hours for a single fight, and I have reason to believe that any bosses on the other side will take even longer, with much more challenging patterns to figure out. FromSoft DLC content doesn't mess around. But hey, at least this job is done. Mohg has been thoroughly rolled on, and the path to the Shadow of the Erdtree is open should I choose to take it. There's nothing left for me to do now but wait, and frantically edit this video together in hopes to capitalize on the release. Before I close this video out, I have 2 important things to briefly mention. First, I've not been shy in my videos in calling out bad boss hurt boxes that I've encountered during these fights. You've probably noticed it throughout the footage in this video, but hitting Mohg directly in the front or the back of his body is a whiff almost every single time. If I don't roll into his hands, then I might as well not be rolling into him at all. That, in addition to his many time-wasting tactics, is part of the reason this fight took as long as it did. I couldn't tell you how many rolls completely whiffed, but I can tell you that it was a pretty significant amount. I'm not going to count the rolls, but hey, if you want to, the entire fight is going to be on my now defunct Let's Play channel if you want to watch it. I wouldn't recommend it. That's an hour and 42 minutes of not a lot going on, just rolling. Anyway, I can only hope that Shadow of the Erdtree's bosses are a bit more refined in the hurt box department, and I won't have to keep talking about bad hurt boxes. And second, and much more importantly, I have to thank the people that helped me put together this video's intro. Richie came in clutch with the instrumental and vocal mixing and blew me out of the water with his interpretation of my vocal performance and my ideas for the music. It came out so much better than I could have ever anticipated, and I'm very grateful for his contribution. You can find a link to both his YouTube channel and his Twitter page, I refuse to call it X, in the description and the pinned comment. And for making the music video look so good, that's all thanks to David at Creators Studio and Delta Kaizen. You can also find their relevant links alongside Richie's. I couldn't have done it without all three of these people, so if you guys are watching, thank you so much. And if you're not one of those three people, leave a comment below thanking them for me. That'd be awesome. And as always, thank you to all my beautiful patrons for fueling my insanity, and thank you for watching this entire video. I don't know what's next at this point, but I hope that you'll stick around to find out. See you on the other side. Bye-bye.